I was 16, I got my license. I thought this was this incredible freedom. I could borrow Mom and Dad's car and I could get away. I could get beyond the radius of Paris. It was kind of like I was in this Cold War with him. I would still have to encounter him. He was asking me where I was applying to college. I really wanted to go to Columbia. Columbia is not a Catholic school. Yeah, I remember Birmingham saying, you got to go to a Catholic college because if you go to a non-Catholic college, you'll lose your faith. And I remember like laughing to myself, thinking, well, pal, because of you, I've already lost it. But I don't know what you're talking about. My college years, I don't even remember going to school. It was 1967. I remember driving up to Boston College. There was a lot of stuff going on in the world. There was still a little protected Catholic college world, but people were tuning in and dropping out. All hell was breaking loose. It was the summer of love in Haight-Ashbury. I was growing my hair long, wearing crazy clothes, protesting the war. And I wasn't going to church. So basically everything I was doing was breaking away from that very tight, ordered, predictable life that we grew up with in our household. I think it was a combination of that cultural influence plus me getting away from all of that oppressive Catholic thing and me wanting to just say, screw it, I don't want to do any of that. I was starting to see through the hypocrisy of it all. I remember coming home weekends and tell Mom and Dad I'm going to church. I'd drive around Salem for a couple of hours. I don't remember when they ever figured out I wasn't going to church anymore.
Oh, Birmingham. Birmingham. I went and told him that Paul's going to college. And you know what, Father? He's not going to church anymore. He says to me, so what? And I didn't know at that time that he had molested my son. Otherwise, I probably would have gone up and killed him, maybe.
For my temper, I think we would have been dead long ago.
This whole thing put a filter over my relationship with my family, especially with my parents. Why did I stop going to church? Why did I stop acting the way they did? Since that was such an important part of their life, I think that they felt there was a huge gulf between us opening up. I think there was a part of me that was just so angry that this had happened to me. Angry with everybody who didn't stop it from happening, even though you're not giving them a chance to help you. I felt a little bit set up by the situation. Here I was, a product of this educational system and this religious system, taken advantage of by that system, and there was nobody there to protect me. Between junior and senior in college, I decided that I was going to be a conscientious objector. The war was going on in Vietnam. I wanted no part of it. You had to prove that you were a conscientious objector on religious grounds, and you had to get a letter from a priest that you were on the level. Well, I really didn't know any other priest. I found out that he was at St. Michael's in Lowell. And I remember driving to Lowell one night with this letter in my hand and ringing the bell of the rectory. He came to the door. He kind of looked at it, and he looked at me kind of almost like with disdain. And he signed it and handed it to me. That was the last time I ever saw him. I had a college degree, and I probably could have used my degree and made a career somewhere, but it never occurred to me to do that. I felt like I was outside of society on some level. It wasn't totally conscious. I wasn't motivated. I was depressed. There was a part of me that felt there was something the matter with me, that I didn't deserve what other people deserved. I went through a long string of jobs, none of which had anything to do with the preceding one. When I got out of college, my first job was working as an attendant nurse at Danvers State Hospital, the state mental institution. I worked as a lobsterman. That was the best job of my life, except that I had terminal seasickness. Took a job driving a cab. Took a job driving a bread truck. Ended up driving a milk truck. Ended up stripping furniture. There was no clear pattern going on here. I actually left the country, went to Italy for about 4 or 5 months. My whole trip over to Sicily turned into this trip to go find my grandfather. Just some weird way of finding my father, I guess, but... Let's let him do it.
Yeah, why don't you do it?
When Birmingham was molesting me, I probably had more awe for the priest than I did for Dad at that time. Forgive me for saying this, Dad. You know, it's just like I didn't know who you were. Birmingham stole the position of my father. Dad didn't have a role model for a father. He was brought up by his mother to think that his father was dead until he was about 7 years old, I think. He tells the story that one day he was outside playing baseball and this older-looking guy shows up and says, do you know where Mrs. Coltrera lives? And he says, yeah, she's my mother.
My mother telling me, he says, see that man with the white hair in front there? He just come to see you? He says, that's your father. I said, what the hell is that?
So then he had a relationship with his dad for a few years until his dad decided to go back to Sicily, and then he never saw him again.
I always been saying that, what if my children ever understand me?
When I think of growing up, Dad was a great father. He was working all the time. He worked in a leather factory. He was tired when he came home. Our aunts Jenny and Kay, they were there in the house. They were unmarried, and they had all this attention that they gave us. So it was very easy for Dad to kind of recede into the background there.
What the heck? I said, no, they're taking care of my kids. Why should I worry? Worry about it now.
I think Birmingham stepped in there at a time in my life where I was probably looking for some strong father figure, and he fit the bill. Father. Literally, he was the father figure. Because he was father. He replaced our fathers.